Hi.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Oh my God. Do you know what we're talking about?
I do not.
Okay.
I'm excited though. This is my first time.
Today we're talking about cultural erasure.
Okay.
Oh.
Good thing I brought my water. Alrighty then.
Do we have tecates here? Hello, everyone. My name is Gaspar Rivera-Salgado. I'm a professor at UCLA, and I'm the director for the Center of Mexican Studies. I'm originally from Mexico, from the state of Oaxaca, of Mixteco origin. This is one of the 68 indigenous groups in Mexico, and our name in Mixteco language is New Savi, which means the people from the rain. My familiarity with indigenous Latino cultures is limited.
I am not very familiar other than the indigenous culture of my country. I was born in Cuba, and we did have natives living on the island before Spain took over and conquered and pretty much murdered them all.
I want to say I'm a little intermediate. I feel like I had a chance to do some African diaspora, which led me into some curiosities about my own culture, and so I've definitely done some research. I know like we come from like the Arawak Indians and right. The Taino Indians, and there's so many. In fact, I learned recently that the Dominican Republic has like 5 different dialects of Spanish,
really?
based off Portuguese influence, Spanish influence. Even within Spain, there were multiple dialects, and only certain amounts came passed down to the DR.
Actually, very familiar. This is one of the topics of classes that I teach, and I've been conducting research with indigenous populations for the last 25 years. We've seen that religion was used to control, manipulated into thinking that, the colonizers' ways were correct. That slowly started erasing our knowledge of our culture, our ancestry, where we came from, the food we ate.
There is this beer called Buccanero, which is named after a famous native of Cuba who fought for the freedom of his people. It's just mostly stories that are in the history books that you learn growing up, but there's not a place that I know of where still there are people of this descent left.
I absolutely do not think that our modern Latinidad includes indigenous cultures at all. I mean, I think that it's not even a topic that I hear regularly or ever, really.
I have to be real. I've never heard of Latinidad before today, like that term. And even more, like I know the question is about like indigenous backgrounds and the inclusivity within our community, but something that's hard for me to reconcile with is our culture recently, to me, has been so attacked that the only things that I see us really fighting for and advocating for is our own basic rights. And so my issue with that is we're so far on that side of the pendulum that we don't even get to be on the other side of the pendulum, which is celebrating and moving forward our culture.
Right.
And making sure that it is inclusive to our younger generations, inclusive to, to the new world that we're in. And so the hard thing with that is there's probably so many difficulties between our culture being able to really kind of keep under that umbrella all of the people who truly belong under it.
This is the paradox of indigenous people, right? We took the name of one of the largest indigenous groups. That wasn't the only one. They were called the Mexicas. So in the place where they live, where they reside, it was called Mexico. But then the new nation had to deal with, the fact that the place was so diverse, was so big. But how do you make everybody Mexican? So that has been, I think, at the core of a lot of our debates. Who are we and how do we call ourselves is exactly that debate.
Yeah, absolutely. It is extremely important to keep our roots, to know where we come from, to know the history of our country. Because when you know where you come from, when you know that there were natives in Cuba that didn't look like the people that live there now, you can be more compassionate in the world. You can relate more to other people of other races, because you come from something different than you are right now.
I think it's really important for us to continue to hold as much knowledge as possible of humans who have done it before.
Definitely.
And specifically humans who we come from, that are of our blood,
Right.
that are of they know the things that we've been through, they know the trauma, they know the hurt. Well, of course we need to listen to them.
Yeah.
Of course we need to know that.
I think that the way for us to move forward and to learn more about our culture is actually having that desire, because that's really the only way. It's not in school. You know what I mean? I grew up in a border town where, like, you know, we learned all about white America and history, and we were erased from the history books. There's nothing about us in there. So I have to actively go and look to find where I came from and what that means and what these people are and what they did.
I've seen indigenous people reaffirming a sense of identity. They even call this place Oaxaca, California. They have musical bands. We have trilingual rappers, right, who rap in Mixteco, Spanish, and English. And they're always questioned, like, that's not traditional. You're not an Indian anymore, an indigenous people, because you are rapping. And what is that? That's a truly American cultural artifact, right? And these young people are saying, well, you know, this is who I am. I'm rapping about my culture. I'm rapping about my history, my own unique experience. But at the same time, I want to speak to my peers, to the experience that I'm living.
Start following activists. Start read the news. Do not watch the news. Read the news and, like, pay attention. There's a lot of bylines with Hispanic Hispanic journalists writing. Let's support our community as much as we want to learn about it, because that's happening regardless of if you want to learn it or not. And so you can be a part of it today, tomorrow, yesterday, by simply supporting and knowing more, you know?
Do you know who your ancestors are?
No idea.
My ancestry starts in North Carolina. That's where both of my parents are from, Greenville, North Carolina. A lot of Black people in America's history starts in the South, coming over from the slave ships and from slavery.
I was born in Central America, El Salvador. For 4 generations, my family has been there. My last name is Castaneda. Obviously, it comes from Castañeda, all the way from Spain.
Actually, that's a funny question you're asking, because we had a reunion the other day, and we wanted to take a DNA test to learn a little bit more about our heritage. So far, we know we're coming all from France. So I'm originally from the North region, let's say 30 minutes north Paris.
Do you think it's important for our parents to teach us about our roots?
Yes, definitely, because I have so many questions. I have so many questions about where I come from, where my last name comes from, where my first name comes from, middle name, yeah.
Absolutely. I wouldn't be standing here if it wasn't because of my mom and my grandfather and his father telling them all of this. This was not on books. This was not on, I don't know, on pictures or any of that. There was no such a thing back then.
Oh, definitely. I think culture is really important for a person, you know, to connect to something, you know.
I think history is like one of the most important thing, and it's so important to share this with your family, with your children. Obviously, it's part of our culture. We wouldn't be here thanks to our parents, grandparents. So it's important to share, definitely, with the future generations.
My conversation today with Dr. Rivera was extremely informative and fun. And my takeaway is that I don't know a lot. So I'm gonna go and take a class with him at UCLA.
This conversation reminded me how passionate that we all have to be about, you know, continuing to move our community forward and to remind ourselves that we have community and how beautiful all the differences are that make us up. So I'm just so grateful that we're having this conversation, and I hope you guys enjoy it.
My takeaway today was that not only do I have a lot of homework to do, but I'm actually excited to do the homework and learn more about my culture and my roots and try to impart my wisdom on my people.
My conversation today with Lene was very inspirational. My takeaway is that it's great to see young Latinos engage in this conversation about who we are, because we're forging the future of this country. And I think it's going to be very important, and it's going to have a political, economic, and cultural impact in the kind of society that we live.
What's up, guys? It's Mike Tenango, the director for this episode of Latinos Talk. Cultural erasure is so important to me because, my dad, since I was very little, has told us that our last name, Tenango, it's actually derived from the Nahuatl language. So I've always felt very connected to our indigenous ancestors, and I encourage you to, do some research, find out where you came from. It's like Gaspar said, we need to know where we came from in order to have, a better future. So go ahead and keep the conversation going in the comments. I want to hear what you think about cultural erasure, Latinidad, indigenous history, and we'll see you on the next one.